This is the live video and interview with Titan Kilogram of King Hood Cykoz and Deuce 11 Gs. These are the questions I'm going to ask him for the live video. What's up, Titan?
What's good,
How have you been?
What's good with you, dog?
Nothing much. I'm going to ask you some questions real quick about King Hood Cykoz and Deuce 11 Gs.
Got you.
Yeah. So how did you form the group anyway?
I ended up going to Lowell, aka Valley in Flint, and I met Bruce and Randy there. Bruce had came from Southwestern, and Randy, his brother, came from Erie, Pennsylvania, and came back home to Flint, and we linked up there at Valley. And at first we were known as a different group, several different groups, and we eventually became King Hood Cykoz.
You were known as two different groups, you said?
First we were UKGs, then we were G-Boys, and then we became King Hood, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So what samples did King Hood Cykoz use in their songs?
Mostly there were a lot of them, but mostly came from like Dayton Family, a lot of local shit, Nodis, Esham, a lot of West Coast stuff, Compton's Most Wanted, Above the Law, NWA, a lot of West Coast stuff, just several groups, a lot of Ghetto Boys, a lot of Rap-A-Lot was in there. They were a huge influence to us. A lot of local groups, Top Authority, Jake Flake, big shots to all them, DFC, Breed, just the huge music scene, and a lot of artists that were also coming to booming at the time when we were recording.
Off of Dort Highway.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got a commenter. He's called JD Unknown. Says the legend 100.
Props.
Okay.
Respect. Thank you, man.
Yep.
Shouts out to Kentucky.
Yeah. So how many demos of the King Hood Cykoz demo get passed around in Flint? It's the red and black cover cassette tape.
That tape was real heavy at the high school at Valley, and it also was real heavy at Flint north side of Flint. There was a lot of, you know what I'm saying, like those demos were just everywhere, man. You know, like friends of our friends, homies, you know, chicks, everybody was like a fan. So, you know, it was just one of them tapes that was just circulating heavy in the underground in the streets of Flint.
It was circulating pretty much almost everywhere in Flint, especially the north side.
Yeah, and I even heard that it was, you know, like getting out there in Saginaw too. Mount Morris, Beecher, all surrounding areas, you know, like it was just a lot of tapes. You know, back then, people in the 90s, they was just floating tapes every motherfucking where, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what it did. That's how it went down, you know. Everybody, if your brother had a tape, your cousin was gonna get a tape next. Everybody was getting linked up with them.
Oh, he said, what year was this? He didn't say it specifically. I'm gonna try. What should I tell him?
What year did the tape come out?
Yeah.
That was probably around 92 or 93. But prior to that, we was in the studio making all types of tapes, home recordings. But that particular tape was probably like 1993, 92, right before I graduated. This was a year right before Deuce 11 Gs dropped.
What's King Hood Cykoz connection with the Copa nightclub?
It was just a club that we all hung out at. You know, Copa was a strip. It's a club, but it was also, you know, a strip that was popping back then, along with Hammer Drop. You know, a lot of other hangout spots that everybody chilled at back then in the 90s. Copa Strip was just that booming spot, man. Like, everybody was there. TDF, Jake the Flake, everybody was fucking with Copa. Like, Copa even was shouted out on the unreleased demo tape by Dayton Family. So, you know, that was the hot spot back in the day.
Yeah, it seems like almost everyone except DOA didn't perform at the Copa.
Yeah.
Because DOA, 6 Feet Deep, and Malone, half the city wanted them dead and the other half wanted their back. Was it like that for King Hood Cykoz too? Malone and 6 Feet Deep of DOA, half the city wanted them dead and half of the city had their backs. Was that the same thing for King Hood Cykoz?
Oh, like, as far as, like, you know, people having problems with us? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Yeah.
I say maybe in a sense, yeah, because, you know, Bruce was always, you know, filling me in on, you know, who was talking shit about us and this and that. And there's a lot of references to that sort of shit that was in a lot of our songs. Like, he, you know, said things about Wesley niggas on, I think, Taking No Chances.
Yeah, Taking No Chances.
Yeah, there was definitely like a lot of, you know, if certain people didn't like us as a group and as a crew and as a set, King Hood, then, you know, we like voiced that shit in our songs. That's the way that we came out with it. Like, we confronted them people in the lyrics.
So that's what happened. What's significant about Grace Street to the group?
Grace Street was one of the streets, I think that one of the members might have lived on. I don't know if Randy J stayed on Grace Street, but there was a lot of, my memories like real foggy now. I'm old as hell. I'm gray-headed and shit, but Grace Street was, you know, a popping street that we always kind of hung out on. And probably did some old illegal activities on back in the day too. So Grace Street was just one of them streets that we shouted out heavily in our music.
Yeah, because even CeeLo D knows about Grace Street. Well, of course he does, but that's obvious.
Yeah, for sure. So,
yeah, because I know Clay was a street hustler too.
Yep.
If you look closely at the Rough and Rugged cover, you can see a 9 coming out of his pants.
Yeah, everybody was strapped, man. Flint is a ruthless ass city, so, you know, you had to stay strapped, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, y'all take it to another level. Even people in Texas are not that strapped, or at least in most parts. Half the state is and half the state isn't, from my perspective. But anyway,
y'all packing chainsaws out there.
Yeah, why didn't King Hood sign to any of the other labels like Boomin' or Black Sunshine or Marquise Entertainment? Was the demo?
I honestly don't know. I do know that there was at one point where I was like this close, so close to signing with Boomin', and I was gonna have a solo album deal contract with Clay and Boomin' Records. But I think I don't know. I kind of regret that we didn't sign and put out a tape at that time. I really wish that we had, but I think by the same token, all of us as members in the group wanted to be so, I guess, independent. You know, we wanted to make our own money when we did this, and we were trying to come out on our own, but we really didn't have the funds. But I really think that we should have rolled with Boomin' and came out with the demo, with the tape on Boomin' Records, the King Hood Cykoz Other Side of Hell tape. They should have came out with Boomin'. We really weren't recording with anybody else. As far as you asking about why we didn't sign with Black Sunshine, I think that's pretty obvious. We didn't really get along with them. So, yeah, I do regret. I think that we should have signed with Booming Records, and I really wish we would have, because we would have a actual physical tape out and people would have known about us, whether it would have been on Discmaker. I think we should have, if we didn't sign with Boomin, we definitely should have came out independently on Discmaker, like, and a lot of other.
Yeah, had their stuff manufactured by disc makers.
Yeah, I really wish that we had gone that route, because everybody else was like, Discmaker was the thing in Flint in the 90s. Like, everybody was doing that shit.
New Jersey.
Yeah. But they were hot though. I respect Discmaker, because a lot of my favorite demo tapes came out on Discmaker 90s. A lot of those artists were.
Did the group have their own band?
You mean as far as like instruments and stuff?
No, like their own minivan. Like you said, like
band.
van.
Oh, my bad. I thought you said band. Yeah, the minivan was my pimp van. We had a lot of adventures he was took. A lot of beers were down. A lot of 40s were killed. A lot of blunts were smoked. A lot of dirt went down in that. The mini Astro van, that was like 93. We talk about that a lot in our music too. The memories, man, were just incredible. I'm sure CeeLo remembers the minivan, and so does Clay and Swift, God rest his soul, and Chat, everybody, man. Like, those were like some of the best days of my fucking life, man. Unforgettable.
What led to the breakup of the King Hood Cykoz?
We never really broke up. It's just that Mark Steele had gone away to Job Corps. Then I heard he went to the Navy. Randy was back and forth. He left Flint for a little while. And then at the same time, I too had moved and gone south to go to college and try to better my life. But as far as the group, we never broke up. Like the story goes, the only member that like officially left the group was Lunatic.
Yeah, Lunatic seems to have fallen off the face of the earth. That's crazy. So was Lunatic added at the last minute?
Nah. Lunatic actually came in. Like I said, I'm real kind of, my memory's kind of gone from me. But Lunatic came in, I think, by Bruce wanted him in the group. He basically stayed around the corner from Bruce. Off of McClellan, and Bruce stayed on Keys.
On Key Street?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Book just, I don't know, I think he just hit up the studio with us one day, and we dropped Visions of Insanity. There actually are 2 copies of that song, and the first one, I think only had like me and Bruce on it, and I can't even remember who else. Maybe Book, I can't remember, maybe Lunatic, but as far as how Lunatic joined the group, I think he just joined. I think Bruce was like, man, I want you to be in our group with us. And he, one of the first tracks we made, I think, was Mind of a Psycho, and plus Visions of Insanity.
Yeah, and there's also No Screws, I think, too.
Yeah, that was like one of the first songs that we ever made at Boomin' Records besides Gangsta Tip. It was Gangsta Tip, Killer by Nature, and No Screws were like our first tracks we ever made at Boomin' Records.
So did Lunatic ever think about signing to Boomin' for a solo deal? Because I think his heart was in the rap based off what he was saying in all those songs.
Nah, I don't think he would. I don't think he did ever want to sign a solo deal with them. He basically was just making songs with Bruce and Mark Steele and other Dr. Jekyll. Half Deck, another lost track in the vaults that I no longer have a copy of. But Lunatic never made any solo tracks. The only song I wish I did have by him was Half Deck with him and Randy J. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, is because there's a Half Deck by Top Authority. It sounds like Top Authority took that song.
Nah, and a lot of people probably will make that assumption and comparison, but we were huge fans of Top Authority. So I think that if anything, Half Deck was definitely inspired by Top Authority. It inspired Lunatic and Dr. Jekyll to make Half Deck, because we used to play.
Yeah.
We used to play Something to Blaze to, the first Top Authority, until the letters came off the tape in my van. Like, that was a classic Flint album.
Yeah, definitely. I need to review that album one of these days.
Yeah, like all of those
Okay, so
are like classics, man. Like Jake the Flake, Out to Get Rich, all of TDF's old shit, all the old Flint like tapes, were all those groups to me are legendary Flint rap groups.
Oh yeah, definitely. What made Lunatic the Lunatic anyway?
I thought that he got the name from the Tupac album that came out back in the day, Tupacalypse Now. That's what I thought. Song on his solo album, on his debut album, Tupacalypse Now, called The Lunatic. So I thought that that's where Lunatic came up with his name for his stage name. Lunatic was from that album. But he might have already been calling himself that prior to that album coming out. But around that time was when King Hood formed, and when we were in the studio recording our first shit was around Tupacalypse Now.
That's a question I had to ask Lunatic himself. But sounds like him and Bruce were good friends.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, they were definitely good ass friends. Like I said, they stayed around the corner from each other, so they were, like probably best of friends.
Yeah. So did you originally plan to go solo?
No, I didn't actually. One thing about me, I loved always writing songs. So before I even formed King Hood, before we went into Boomin' Records, I was making solo tapes at my parents' crib on Kensington on the east side of Flint. I was using like tape players. I had made a couple of demos in my room. I wish I still had them. My little brother, he had kept them for a long time, but just me, even before we moved to Flint, I was writing songs when we lived in Chicago, as well as doing like artwork and shit, graffiti, doing cartoon work. I did the mural at Valley in the hallway. It was like a art mural that I drew on the wall one year. I wish I had taken a picture of it. But going solo, to me, you have to be very, very, very skillful at your craft. You have to have lyrics. It takes a lot of time because a solo artist has to develop 3 verses per song. And one thing about me, as you'll notice on the Basement Tapes, the album that you own, my latest solo album, a lot of those songs don't even have 3 verses. Like, it's a lot of work being a solo artist. So I just would rather be in a group, and you have to be on point, as far as I'm concerned, with everything that you put into your music, or people are going to talk about you.
Definitely. Okay, that's what's up. So what happened to your solo album, Titan Kilogram?
It never actually dropped. I can't really remember exactly what happened. I think what it was is that I had moved, or some kind of things popped up as far as I guess me moving, because I think that was 93 when my solo album was being produced. and I was supposed. See, what had happened was I think the there was some kind of issues with the contract with Boomin' Records, because the album was originally supposed to come out on Boomin', and my dad was involved with the whole politics of the contract and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know what happened in reading of the contract, but the album never got dropped with Boomin'. So that too was another album that didn't get released on Boomin' Records, as well as the King Hood stuff.
Yeah. How many songs were recorded for your solo album?
There was I Thought You Knew, Struggle in the Jungle, a song called It's On, which is also another song that got lost. The song The Ladder, Don't Want to Live, Heaven, Feeling Fine. That's it. There also was Tootin' with My Homies. That's another lost track. So I don't know how many what that is that I just named, but that. Oh, and there was episodes too with CeeLo D.
Oh, there's already an episodes.
So I'm guessing maybe about 11 or 12 songs, maybe 13. There were also songs that I made when I was in college that I wanted to put on the solo album too. So I've added those into the Basement Tapes album. Basically, the Basement Tapes is everything, the 93 demo, as well as everything else I've made. Is 3 CDs long.
Wow. Did Randy ever attempt to sign to Boomin' Records?
No. If he was gonna sign, it was gonna be as a group, as King Hood Cykoz.
Not as a solo artist?
No.
So none of the members were going to sign as solo artists if King Hood Cykoz didn't work out?
No other artists. I was the only one that was doing solo stuff.
I know Mark Steele did solo stuff eventually.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Mark Steele was also one of the other members that was doing a lot of side projects. He did Corruption. He was doing stuff with Hardware, and he also did songs with members of Variety of Sins, Close Your Eyes, and Wicked Chemistry with I think it was Jason Mass.
There we go. So was Randy down with Lunatic too? Because they did a song together.
They were cool. We all, like, everybody basically grew up around each other. So Randy and Lunatic were definitely like cool ass homies. They were cool with each other. They saw each other all the time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I never thought King Hood Cykoz made it anywhere outside of Flint. I didn't even know they made it to Saginaw.
Yeah, like the demos floated, man. Like the Deuce 11 G's demo tape floated all the way to Ohio. People were finding out about us, all the way out West Coast, other parts of the Midwest. Like today, I'm being hit up by people from down south, overseas, out of the country. I'm like, I didn't even know that our demo reached that far, that people knew about King Hood and Deuce 11 and all of us outside of Flint. I didn't even know that shit. And I really do appreciate it, man. I love our fan base, man. I really give homage. I don't shit on my fans, like a lot of a lot of these artists out here, they don't give a fuck about their fan base and treat people like garbage. But I'm not that type of person. If you feeling me, I give as much love back to you.
Yeah. Did all that stuff really happen on Ghetto Hell Randy, Lunatic, and Bruce.
You talking about like all the stuff that we talked about on Ghetto Hell?
Yeah, the song Ghetto Hell.
Yeah, like a lot of that shit is true. One thing about King Hood is that we didn't lie about shit that we put in our music. The shit was real deal shit. So all of the things that was shout or things that was talked about was real life shit.
Was Bruce already into rap like Mark Steele and Randy?
You mean like into the music? That's a good question because I want to real relevant about Bruce. He was really into sports. Bruce could have been like he was a hellified basketball player. And his brother too. His brothers, Bobby Hall and Willie Hall. Shouts out to both of them. God rest his soul. Bobby Hall, he was a good dude. I miss him a lot. But Bruce was a real basketball go-getter. You know what I'm saying? Like he really played basketball like a motherfucker. Like he could have been a Flint star. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as on the ball court. So yeah, he was into music, but at first I kind of had to urge him, kind of kick him in the butt to get him more into it. He really wasn't into it at first. But once we started making some songs and shit, I was really impressed with him on the mic because when I first heard him drop Bloodstains on My Shoestrings, I was like, wow, this motherfucker right here can rap his ass off. So when we first started out, like I was ghostwriting a lot of songs that we were making, like No Screws, and I was writing verses for some of those tracks. And then eventually he started writing his own songs, his own lyrics to the tracks. But yeah, Bruce was always really into sports a lot more than music. But he still was feeling the rap game, a lot. One of his favorite labels was No Limit Records. He wanted us to sign with them more than anything in the world. In '97, he had big dreams of us signing with Master P and them. And I really wish that we had taken off with that dream. Prior to that, we were trying our best to get signed by Rap-A-Lot Records and James Smith down in Houston.
Oh yeah, definitely. I bet Bruce was thinking about getting a solo deal too.
Yeah, I kind of wish he had. I kind of wish Bruce had come out with a solo album, as well as Swifty. There's just a lot of talent in Flint that was really swept under the rug and overlooked and underrated. And I wish that Bruce had come out with a solo album. But yeah, I think that would have been real fire for sure.
One thing I noticed is that Mark Steele and Bruce get most of the spotlight out of all the members in the group. Why is that?
I kind of wonder that too. I guess they were the most. I think one thing that Bruce and Mark Steele had was a fire in their voices. Vocally, they really stood out. Like I listened to Visions of Insanity a million times, and both of them on that song are just immaculate. And I think they did the same thing on several other tracks. Bruce and Randy's verses on Ghetto Hell were fire. They really were, they spit flames on a lot of songs that King Hood made. So I think that's why a lot of fans like them the most as far as standing out of all the members of King Hood Cykoz.
That explains everything. How did Mark Steele join the group?
One day, I think he came up to Valley, and if I remember correctly, and Bruce was like, "This is my cousin, Mark Steele," and he was like, he want to join the group, And I think it was just history from there, man. Like, you know, he came in and we dropped, I think it was Everyday Life of a Psycho. And ever since then, like, he just, you know, was with the group and shit, man. And like, I was amazed because he blew me away with his verse on Visions of Insanity. Like, I just, but yeah, I think that's how Steele came in the group. He came up to Valley one day and Bruce introduced me to him, and then sooner or later we were all in the basement at Booming making songs together.
Oh yeah, that's how you guys got hooked up. So when did Mark Steele leave the group?
Steele left in I think 95. I'm guessing. It was between 94 and 95. He left off to go to Job Corps and the Navy because he had rapped that in his verse on Nightmare and King Hood. While he was away, that was when we had dropped the Deuce 11G shit because Lunatic was out of the group. Me, Bruce, and Randy formed Deuce 11Gs, and we always had Mark Steele in the studio in spirit, and we blew it up, dog. Like, Deuce 11G's, people loved that fucking album, even though it was like 3 songs long. It was the 3 most incredible songs we ever made out of our catalog. People loved that more than the 15, 16 songs we made on King Hood Cykoz album. That's what trips me the fuck out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess Mark Steele never thought about signing a solo deal with Boomin because he had talent, fire, and desire.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the members out of King Hood that I think definitely should have had a solo contract, solo album. Mark Steele, I didn't learn until later. I always knew he had lyrics. I always knew that he had talent beyond the clouds. But I didn't learn until later until me and him started hanging heavy together. So he's one artist that I think really should have pursued, like, you know, he should have had a solo album. Definitely, more than one.
Oh yeah, definitely. What did Dacopa have against Mark Steele?
that was
he talked about shooting up
the Copa.
Yeah, he talks about shooting up the Copa.
I don't know, to be honest. There was a lot of references in our music to doing things to certain places and certain artists. I remember on the song Living in King Hood, I think that's the name of it, where Bruce Moore was talking about Michael Jordan. He was talking about Madonna. He's talking about Michael Jackson. But I think, I don't know what the word is. There was a lot of that in Flint music, to be honest. Like, Dayton Family did that a lot too, making references to certain hot spots, local spots that were off the chain, and a lot of superstars is to kind of like tell stories about them and the reasons why they are the type of person they are. But I don't know if the Copa did something to Mark Steele to piss him off, but I thought it was pretty fucking funny, to be honest. He talked about shooting up the Hard Rock Cafe too, I think, in Drive-By.
Yeah. Hard Rock was the precursor to the Copa, as I read online.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, we did a lot of wild shit back in them days, man. Like, when we were King Hood and back in the 90s, I remember Bruce Moore got out of the minivan and was like chasing a chick down the street with one of those small baseball game billy clubs. He like just jumped out of the van one day and we were listening to the Ghetto Boys, and he just decided to jump out the van and run down the street and chase her with a billy club, you know? That's just the type of shit we did, just off shit.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, so was the SP900 DJ Clay's main mixing tool?
Yeah, that was the album that was the basically the stereo, the studio equipment that I remember him using, and it probably was like my favorite, cause he just, but at the same time it kind of like was a curse too, because he lost a lot of good music on that equipment too. For some reason it kept.
Oh really?
Yeah, it kept crashing and losing.
Oh really?
Songs that we had made in the studio.
Damn. So he did all the mixing at. Go ahead.
Yeah, he did all the mixing at Boomin. I know that at one point, Boomin was called Pre-Production Studios. So like the technical terms, production, but I guess pre-production is like before you actually master and lay down an album, before it's mastered.
Yeah, that's what he did at his parents' house in the basement, from what his employees had told me.
Yeah.
I talked to employees and artists that recorded there.
Yeah.
You think DJ Clay had chocolate tires laying around in Boomin Studios?
I'm not 100 as far as chocolate tire, but I'm pretty sure there was some leaves of chocolate tie laying around.
It didn't have a tire that said Ethan on it? Remember that?
I would have probably asked if I could get a bite of that shit if he did have some chocolate tire laying around. I didn't even know that people made chocolate tire until you brought it up, actually.
Yeah, I Googled and Binged it, and you can't make that shit up.
Chocolate tire.
Yeah, and I got tranny porn too from that as well. Don't ask me how that came up, it just did. But yeah. Was CeeLo D around for the early sessions?
Yeah, I mean, like, you mean like in the studio? CeeLo would be in the studio pretty much all the time. Like, he was there when Clay was there a lot of times. They hung around each other like brothers, so CeeLo was in the studio a lot of times when we would hit the studio and have recording sessions, have a set booked or whatever. We come in and we see CeeLo there. So a lot of times in those situations, CeeLo would just write his verse. He'd be like, "Can I jump on that with you?" So he would literally write his verse. He would do it freestyle right there on the spot at Boom, and while we was in the studio, he was freestyling a verse on one of our songs while all of us had our shit written. That's just how it flowed. That's how it went down. But he's an amazing artist, man. The fact that he could freestyle and he's still doing his thing, 30 years later as Carlito 810. Big props to CeeLo D, man.
Yeah, I invited him in. I guess he's busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, how many songs did Rough and Rugged collaborate on with King Hood Cykoz? I mean, how many songs did CeeLo D of Rough and Rugged collaborate on with King Hood Cykoz?
CeeLo was on Taking No Chances. He was on a lost version of Bloodstains on My Shoestrings. And he was on episodes with us. So I think it was just those songs. I think that those were the only songs that CeeLo was on. I don't remember him being on anything else besides Taking No Chances.
How many songs did Death Wish Incorporated record?
Let me see. There was Lifelines,
War Games.
War Games, yeah.
To Die For, Did a Game, and
Visions 96. I think it was Visions, Lifelines, and War Games. True to the Game and To Die For were, I think, Ballers of the Round Table all those other roundtable songs.
Bruce did Death Wish Incorporated at the beginning of To Die For.
Oh, he did? Okay, yeah, then that was Death Wish then, yeah. Yeah, okay, yeah, then Death Wish Incorporated was Lifelines, Visions, and War Games, True to the Game, and To Die For. 5 songs.
Oh yeah. So what happened to Death Wish Incorporated anyway? The last song recorded was To Die For.
That was 97. I think I had gone back down south. During that time, I was back and forth in college. So all of those years. So that's why nothing else got recorded. And I don't think Rick Steele and Randy pursued to, keep going to the studio at that time. They didn't make any more songs. All I do know is that Mark Steele was still making a few solo songs that were on, I think, Reverb Nation. And I had copied those and added them into the King Hood Cykoz the unreleased album. It's in all the songs, as well as the hardware songs he made, and I included all of those in the USB I sent you. And that actually is waiting, set to date, trying to figure out when I can release that album, because I want all of those tracks on the first official King Hood Cykoz album that I'm trying to get pressed up and sold in online stores.
Definitely. Well, thank you for taking your time out to join in this live. Thank you for joining this live video and interview.
No doubt, man. Thanks for having me, Michael, man. We'll follow up again soon, dog.